All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and begin. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Indie Program webinar. My name is Stephanie. I'm a business developer here at Xsens, and I'm joined by Christopher Adamson. He is our product specialist. We're both a part of our sales and support team here in the US. We're located in the Culver City, Los Angeles area. So we appreciate you attending our webinar today, and just so you know, we are recording the webinar for future viewing. If you do want a copy of the recording afterwards, if you've already registered, we'll likely send it via email, but you can go ahead and shoot us an email too at info@xsens.com if you would like a link, or if you have any other questions following the webinar today. So we will actually be covering the Indie program, the details of the Indie program, along with the criteria, the pricing, and then after that, we will follow it with a full demonstration of our MVN Awinda system. That is our strap-based motion capture system. We'll walk through the full setup and calibration, as well as our MVN Studio software, and we'll talk about some of the common pipelines as well. As you may know, we can export your recorded motion capture data, but we also have functioning pipelines for very common animation and game engines, such as animation software and game engines such as Maya, Motion Builder, Unity, Unreal, as well as iClone as well. So we'll talk through all of that throughout our webinar today. And like I mentioned earlier, we will be addressing questions at the very end utilizing the chat feature. So the idea behind the Xsens MVN motion capture system is that it truly allows you, the creative, to have full control over your animation pipeline. A lot of that is due to the fact that setup time is significantly more streamlined compared to optical systems, for example, and it really requires very little technical support during the actual calibration, operation, and setup. All right, so we're going to go ahead and resume. So as we mentioned earlier, Xsens MVN is really designed to give control back to the creatives, whether that be an indie creative or a AAA studio. We really do see applications across the board here. But our indie program is designed to provide easier access to users across the entire gamut of applications. So since the setup time, prep time, and operation of our systems is much lower compared to some of the more elaborate optical systems out there, it allows animators to actually do prototyping right in their offices, for example, or it allows you to do pickup in a matter of minutes as opposed to a full day rental of an optical stage. And so these days we're also seeing a pretty wide scope of applications as a result. Live performance, for example, and of course VR are up and coming and emerging applications that we see the MVN systems applied to. And largely that is due to the fact that not only is the setup time decreased, but the actual performance of the systems has significantly improved over the years. So if you haven't followed us, we are currently on our 3rd generation of systems, and this current generation, which is extremely future-proof, we've been coming out with new features on the software side over the past couple of years now that have significantly improved the overall versatility of our systems. Now, for those of you who are just learning about our Indie program, we did just launch it earlier this year around GDC time. It's a pretty breakthrough program for us because it does provide access to the same industry caliber motion capture tools to independent companies, freelancers, and it lowers the entry cost significantly. So while our technology may not have been considered accessible by some of those younger or indie companies, nowadays we are doing more to address that market. And this indie program allows us to do so. So the products that are sold in our indie program are fully functional. They are not a dumbed down version of our systems. In fact, the hardware is exactly the same. We are lowering the entry cost by enabling you to receive your first year of software for free. And By software, we are referring to MVN Studio Pro, which is our highest tier of software, which is valued at about $9K or so. So it's a significant savings in your first year, and in subsequent years, if you continue to qualify, you will receive an additional discount on the software as well. In order to participate in our Indie program, we just have 3 criteria. You must be a new customer of Xsens. You must have a registered company, and your revenue and funding over the last fiscal year should be no more than about $750,000. As far as limitations, as I mentioned, the software and the hardware are fully functional. Access to our technical support would be through our base online forum. It's a forum that we have online that's accessible by both our product specialists who provide technical support and our developers. So it does provide a direct line to our developers who can assist you with any sort of technical inquiries. Now, if you've gone to our Indie page, you may have clicked through it and come across this page. So if you do meet the 3 following criteria, you essentially have the choice between our Xsens MVN Awinda or our MVN Link, our strap-based system versus our full Lycra suit version. We'll go through the differences between these 2 systems as the demo proceeds, but you can see the price difference there. The MVN Awinda is priced at around the $7K, and the Link is priced roughly at around $12K or so, and software is completely free in your first year. So essentially, your entry cost is just the cost of the hardware, significantly reducing our typical package price. And then you'll see here at the bottom what the subsequent years would look like. If you still continue to qualify for Indie, you get a 50% discount on the software. So you can choose between MVN Studio or MVN Studio Pro if you decide to continue on. Now, a little bit about our company, if you're not quite familiar with Xsens or if you're new to learning about us. We actually have been out on the industry for almost 17 years now. Now, we do operate in other segments as well. We have products in both the industrial and biomechanical segments. We introduced our 3D character animation solutions to SIGGRAPH in 2007. That's when our MVN system debuted. And as I mentioned earlier, we're now on our 3rd iteration of hardware. Some of our team there, we actually have our headquarters located in the Netherlands. I mentioned earlier that Chris and I are a part of our sales and support team for the US character animation department specifically, and we're located in Culver City, California, but the rest of our team is in our headquarters in Enschede, Netherlands. We do have some representation worldwide with distributors located throughout Asia, as well as Europe as well. We also have some people on the ground in South America and Australia. But Chris and I are the ones who primarily provide the support and sales for all of the Americas, North and South America.
Okay, hey everybody. So as Stephanie mentioned, my name's Chris. I'm the senior technical support for the 3D character animation for Americas. So going back a little bit on what support you would receive, we do have all the support for the indie customers through base, but if you look at all these dots on the screen right there, that's access to base. So you're having pretty much 24/7 support, plus our developers, plus our project managers. Everybody is constantly looking at base. So Xsens prides ourselves on our support, and you would receive pretty good support. How the trackers work is there's 3 main components. There's a gyroscope tracking rotation, a magnetometer tracking magnetic north, an accelerometer which tracks gravitational pull. And what we do and what makes Xsens pretty unique is we take all the information of these and create 17 IMU sensors that go across your body. The trackers themselves, they all go into our software, MVN Studio. And MVN Studio is where all of our algorithms happen to put it on a biomechanical model. So what is unique about the software release is about to come out is we did a lot of algorithms over the last 10 years to figure out how to have magnetic immunity. If you ever heard of inertial systems and hear about drift or anything like that, That was obviously a big issue. So we've solved that with the new software and actually solved magnetic interference. So our systems, when you calibrate them, will work very well for almost the whole day. As Stephanie also mentioned, there's 2 other application areas for Xsens. Besides 3D character animation, there's industrial applications. So this is trackers that are used for drone stabilization, single IMUs. And then there's motion science, which is essentially the same hardware that we're using, but a different software package. What this really means is we're taking information of trackers that is at such a high rate that's used for biomechanical research and prosthetic research, and we're applying it into the 3D character animation market. So the data we are getting is way better than we actually even need to retarget on a 3D character.
In other words, the human motion measurement applications do require quantitative accuracy. They are looking at things like joint angles and kinematic analysis of each segment of the body. And while we don't need quantitative data in the character animation world, our developments in that particular segment have essentially led to better realism, better fluidism, and that just means better data for character animation purposes.
Yeah, and then we come to our bread and butter, the coolest section of Xsens, in my personal opinion, the 3D character animation, which is what we do. Now in the past, the last 2 iterations of the suits were mostly used for pre-visualization, blocking out animation. Now we're seeing with the fidelity and the magnetic immunity and all the motion we're getting is to the quality where people are using it in post-visualization. And then a lot of major studios are now purchasing the systems and use these systems in place of their big optical stages, because there's no need to build a stage if you need a playground or if you need monkey bars or if you need a rock wall. You can just take the suit and get that data, and that's making a big difference. We're also seeing it because of the robustness used a lot in live entertainment, a lot of training simulations, and of course virtual reality, because you want to be able to see your body exactly how your body's moving, and with that robustness you can actually get that in virtual reality now. So with this newest iteration of the suit, we did a lot of work on the robustness of the hardware itself, so the trackers could take a big hit without being hurt. They could take about 120 pounds of pressure. We've also added on-body buffering, so if your connections are lost between the computer and the hub, there's on-body buffering for the Awinda and the Link, so you're still going to get 60 frames or 240 frames a second. And of course, magnetic immunity, which is a big deal. Some other advances in how the development of Xsens works is every 6 months we have a minor and a major software release. So this software release that's coming out in around November, that's going to be a very major release with the magnetic immunity. The software release before that was a minor release, but that involved on-body recording, so you can actually record information on the suit itself, and also a remote control app. So with an iOS or Android device, you can name recording, stop and start recording, see a live preview, and shoot reference videos. So Xsens is constantly doing stuff, and how we actually form our development is based on what customers want. So customers wanted height tracking, we added height tracking. They wanted an easier system to use. The system's very easy to use. So there's two main hardwares that we sell, the MVN Awinda and the MVN Link. The MVN Awinda is a great system for if you have a lot of animators trying to get in a suit and shoot some motion capture. It's really portable and really easy to use. You just take the trackers, you strap them on with these little Velcro straps, and then you're up and going in about 5 minutes. The Link system is what we sell more to like giant production houses. It has all the trackers threaded within the Lycra suit. So those trackers can all go to a central body pack. That body pack sends a Wi-Fi signal. That Wi-Fi signal can connect to a network, or it can connect to the Wi-Fi router we provide. You can also do on-body recording with the Link system. So they have their different applications, and it's just up to you guys to decide, okay, do I need to do a lot of dance movements and a lot of martial arts, or am I going to do a lot of like just basic movements? Then I can just put the Awinda suit on.
Now, the Awinda system is highly interchangeable, so a very common use case for the Awinda is when it is going to be passed around by animators on, say, a daily basis. It's something that animators like to keep handy in the office. They can quickly pass it on from one to another, set it up within 5 minutes, and do quick pickup if they need to. And as far as the visual differences between the Awinda and the Link, on most movements, the frame rate difference is actually not as noticeable. I mean, for even things like running, 60 frames a second is perfectly sufficient for this type of application. As Chris mentioned, where you may start to actually notice the difference is for high speed, high dynamic movements or movements of high intensity. So anytime you're doing things like stunts, perhaps barrel rolling into crash pads, combat, that's really where we begin to recommend the Link system. Not only for its higher frame rate, but also because the sensors are much more secure to the body within the Lycra suit, and naturally then are less susceptible to any sort of shifting or shaking.
Yeah, as Stephanie also mentioned, that all the information from these sensors go into our software, MVN Studio. You can record and export in a traditional kind of way as an FBX, BVH, or C3D from our software. But then our software can also live stream into Maya, Motion Builder, and Unity with free plugins. Then we also have plugins for Unreal, which is through the iKinema engine.
Recently at SIGGRAPH this year, we also announced a partnership with the folks at iClone as well. So we do have a functioning pipeline that can enable you to stream your data live into iClone 7.
All right, we're gonna get into the software now. So here's me, and I'm actually, oh, the camera moved. We're sitting down here. So you can see me. I'm in the Awinda system right now. We did a calibration right before this webinar, but I'll go through the calibration process.
So as far as placement of the sensors on the body, there are 17 total sensors on both the Awinda and the Link system. And the placement of the sensors is the same between the two. The difference is that the Link system has the sensors within the Lycra suit. They are wired together to a single body pack, whereas on the Awinda system, as you see, they are fully wireless. So each sensor is independent from another, and they are all transmitting data at the same time. So the placement of the sensors, you have sensors on upper and lower part of each extremity, shoulder sensors on the back, there's a sternum sensor on the front, one on the head, one on the pelvis, which Chris is pointing to now, and also one on each foot. Now the information from these sensors is actually retargeted onto a 23 segment skeleton. So while there are only 17 sensors, we're actually getting full articulation on the toe roll, for example. We're also seeing a higher concentration of segmentation on the spine and on the neck, which is the core of the movement. And so that's in order to get really high fidelity movement, that spine and neck segmentation is extremely important. Now, again, just a reminder, we have been working on this biomechanical retargeting for now about 17 years. So it's really important to us that the way that the information from these trackers is interpreted onto the human skeleton is quantifiably correct, especially for our biomechanical customers.
Okay. So I'm going to go through the software, give you guys a rundown of how to set up the system. So when you first open up the software, there's a dialog box that pops up, kind of like an Autodesk suite that says our tutorial page, our manual. This is pretty important because our tutorial page is very rich. If somebody asks a question, a product specialist like me makes a video, and pretty much all the questions are solved right there in just our tutorial page. So what I would want to do is set up which system I'm about to use. I can name it, I can color code it. I could set update rates. I could set if I want to do just lower body configuration or just upper body if I'm doing like a newscast or something. There's different scenarios. So there's soft floor, pelvis fixed, multi-level, and single level. What all these are for is to help you get the best global position of your full body. Then you can choose which system you're using, a Awinda system or a Link. And then our software itself, you can add up to 4 systems per software. Then I would choose where I'm going to record, and I could choose my take names here. So every time I press record, the recording will be named test and then minus whatever this take name is, 001. So that's that. I can check my hardware status. I can see my battery strength. I can also add additional props here. So each system can support up to 4 additional trackers that can be used as a sword or a gun or whatever you can imagine, wings, tails. We've seen it all. You can also, if you accidentally swap the right and left hand, you want the right hand to obviously move your right hand. But if you notice on set that your right hand swapped with your left hand, you could just click and drag and put the identification of the trackers in where you want it to be. Yeah, we're gonna go through and answer all the questions at the end. I see people asking some questions right now. Okay, so you can also, when you first set up a session, the system's up and going, I'm gonna wanna put my body height and my foot size. For a single person setup, it's pretty important to measure the body height and foot size of your character. This is how we're basing global positions. So if my foot were to be an inch off every time I take a step, then that step and stride would be an inch further, an inch shorter than it actually needed to be. So it is pretty important to get your foot size. If you have accurate measurements, then our drift is less than 0.5%. So if you walked 100 feet from the origin, came back to the origin, then you should drift less than 6 inches there. Now what I do is a walk calibration. So I'm gonna uncheck the calibration right here. You can see the avatar crumpled up into what I call an amoeba. So what this means is the magnetometers, the gyroscopes, and the accelerometers have no kind of idea where they are on your body right now. So what we have to do is calibrate the system. So I'm gonna stand up. Stephanie's gonna jump behind the computer, and we'll show you what a calibration looks like.
All right, so Chris is going to step through the walkthrough calibration. Basically, the way this works is he's going to start in a neutral pose with his hands by his side. Then it's going to prompt him to do a short walk and then turn and return to his original position. All right, Chris, I've just hit start. So you're going to stand in the end pose. Go ahead and walk. Turn. And stand in end pose. Go ahead and relax. And that's all it takes. That is the entire calibration process. So there's no need for anything additional. Many of you may be familiar with the traditional T pose. We actually do an N pose, a neutral pose, and a walk. The way that our calibration works is it also tends to continue to calibrate over the first few seconds as well. So once this is done processing, Chris will walk for a few seconds more. We typically ask him to walk in, say, a figure 8 or something like that. Over time, the system kind of learns to adapt to the environment. It's learning a little bit more about any magnetic disturbances in the room, and that's how we develop full immunity to them. So now Chris is calibrated. You can see he's moving around here, and that's it. He's ready to go. Yay. So from here on, now we can begin recording movements, or we can stream the data live into Maya, Motion Builder, Unity, for example. So from here, Chris is going to talk a little bit about the export and the live streaming pipelines.
Yep, it's fairly simple. So if I actually just did a recording right here, did a wave, I can then open up the file. And then from here, I could export my file. So I'd go to the export. I can export the file I just recorded. I can export all the open files within MVN Studio. I can batch export any file that is within the containing folder. Or I could export the selection. So if I selected right here, then I could export just this blue selection. And then while I export, I could choose how and what kind of file I want. So I'm going to export an FBX, and I want to actually export this at 30 frames a second instead of 60, so I can downsample by 1. Because we get the measurements in the beginning, we can add a T-pose to frame 0 to enable you to retarget easier. You can export as a skeleton, which would be an HIK hierarchy skeleton you can export. You can set the time, or you can set the measurements. You can set, if you have time code, you can add an LTC time code source and actually export that information. And you can just do other parameters like apply on roll filter, which is our gimbal lock, or lock on spot, which would be what a game character would use. So when you push a joystick forward, you can actually have a real run cycle with real center of gravity, but then have it not actually move, would be walk on spot. So that is the export for offline workflow, we call it. There's also the online workflow, which would be to stream the information to one of those third-party softwares. So if I actually wanted to stream this information over to Motion Builder, and this process is the same for Unity or Unreal or Maya. I'm just going to show Motion Builder because it's what I'm most familiar with. You can stream over a network. So if I was in an office here in LA and I had a shared network with somebody over in New York, I could put that computer of where I'm streaming here in the IP address. And then I could set the port. So if I had multiple systems, and I could also stream timecode. I'd choose which parameters I'm actually going to stream. So if I was streaming Unity, I'd choose Unity. Obviously, I'm streaming for Motion Builder, so I'm just going to choose Euler. So in Motion Builder, if I actually just drag in the plugin, you can see a skeleton pops up. Now if I turn this online, that's actually me streaming over. I'm just going to stream that recorded file because something happened. Oh, that's what was happening. I didn't have the live preview selected. I was selected on the recorded file. So that's me live inside a Motion Builder. Now if I connected it to a character real quick, so I have character and then driven by the MVN stream. So now you can see Motion Builder. Live with MVN Studio, which is also me down here. There you go. All three of those cameras.
Now this is a feature unique to MVN Studio Pro. MVN Studio Pro is the software that enables the live streaming. With MVN Studio Standard, you could do everything prior to this pipeline that we showed. So as far as recording movements to FBX, BVH, or C3D, you can do that in the standard version. Of course, under the Indie program, you get MVN Studio Pro completely for free in your first year. So it is a really great value. And then you can decide in subsequent years if you want to renew with either MVN Studio or MVN Studio Pro. Now, Chris showed the pipeline to Motion Builder, but as we mentioned, you can also do the same exact thing into Unity, Maya. There is also a pipeline to Unreal as well, although it does require iKinema Live Action Suite at the moment. And there is also a functioning pipeline into iClone also. Now, if you have questions specifically on the pipelines themselves, you can feel free to email us after the fact. You can email us at info@xsens.com with any additional inquiries. All right, looks like that concludes our session for today. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to email us. You can also respond to the invitation with any questions as well. We'll go ahead and send out a recording to all of you who have attended today of the session. In case you happen to miss any part or didn't get to jump into the audio at the beginning, we really appreciate your attendance, and we hope to speak with each of you soon. If you require a formal quote for the Indie program, you can actually go ahead and just sign up for it right on our website. It will automatically send you a document with the full pricing. We hope you have a great afternoon, and like I said, we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.